Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. So, we're talking about electric vehicles today. So, if you've had any questions about EVs in terms of how much does it cost to charge them, to maintain them, any questions about how safe they are, what is the meaning of kilowatt hour, how many units does an electric car consume when you charge it at a home charger? We've got Mr. Anand Kulkarni. He is Product Line Director, Electric Vehicles Tata Motors, to answer all these questions and more for you. Hi, Mr. Kulkarni. Thank you very much for joining us. This is
Hi.
great.
Good evening. Hi,
Welcome to
Abhilasha.
Express Drives. So let's talk all things electric vehicles today. So let's begin with charging infrastructure. So since a lot of people believe that the presence of charging infrastructure is the definitive solution for range anxiety. Like if there are more of these, I'll have less of range anxiety and I will trust electric vehicles more. So do you think that's true? And how difficult is it to install these at, say, homes or offices or personal premises?
Right. So you need to have chargers, of course. There is no doubt about that. And you need to have the availability of a charging network in order to make EVs run. However, it's important to note that charging is not necessarily and not always related to being able to charge it in a fast charger network, which is a public installed network. 95% of the people tend to charge it at home, and they can do that by charging off a regular 3-pin plug, a single phase plug. Of course, it takes a little time, but you could still have charge at your convenience, at your time of convenience, so to say. Secondly, you could also have chargers fitted at workplaces. And most people tend to drive only about 45-50 kilometers a day. And sometimes on weekends, you would need to take that slightly long trip, or weekend trip, which is the time when fast charger network becomes useful on highways. And there are a lot of fast chargers which are coming up today, enabling people to take long distance drives as well. So yes, a fast charging network is required, and if we complement the slow charging which is available at home along with the rest of the charging infrastructure that is coming up, I think we should be able to allay almost all of the fears that people may have about being able to use electric vehicles in a manner that they would want to, and therefore allay all the range anxieties that they would have.
Thank you for that. Let's move. Since you mentioned fast charging, so there were a lot of articles that I've come across on the internet, and even we did a piece on this quite recently. That battery life tends to deteriorate on usage of fast charging. Does that hold true for something like a small electric car, something like a Tata Tigor EV?
So let's look at it this way. When you force a charge into a vehicle, let's for a moment think that you are doing a slow charge. The slow charge is always dependent on what is the voltage rating of your car, and therefore it is trying to push in a certain level of current into the batteries, let's say. Now, whenever batteries accept current, there's going to be some amount of heat along with it. Batteries do not like too much of heat, therefore we have mechanisms to control it. And with fast charging, what happens is you are therefore trying to pump in more current at the same time, because you're trying to get more charge into the batteries within a finite time period. And this can often lead to an additional heat generation. Now, if you look at how does a battery store energy, or how does it give away energy, it is through a electrochemical reaction that happens within the battery. And let's not get into very complex descriptions today, but
Right.
there's an electrochemical reaction happening within the battery. Now, when the electrochemical reaction happens, it is not very easy to manage it with heat, because of the very nature of how batteries are. And therefore, if you are constantly charging with fast charging, then you will find that there is a certain level of deposition which will deteriorate some efficiency and some efficacy of the batteries. Now, when people hear the word deterioration, they think, oh, my batteries are going to go bad very very quickly. But that's not the case. Typically, it is common for batteries to have thousands of cycles of charge discharge, and there will be a small deterioration seen. So, end user may in reality not be able to see the effects of that charging or of that deterioration while he operates the car or operates the vehicle in a day-to-day fashion or in his routine life. So technically, yes, there is a deterioration that happens when you do fast charging. But given the fact that most people tend to charge at home, which is what I said earlier, and given the fact that people use fast charging only as a means of accessing a charger during a long duration, this should in reality not affect uh, any battery to an extent where a person should be concerned about.
Right. So that's a top tip right there, I guess. So basically, we're not going to depend on fast charging for everyday usage. So we'll be all right.
Correct, correct. So if you have slow charge, and what we say is, go ahead, use the fast chargers. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. I mean, that's the convenience. People have to be able to access that.
Yeah.
But wherever possible, use your slow charger so that the battery has the opportunity to regain the battery. There are various other parameters working within the battery. There is something called as cell balancing. If that has an
Yeah.
opportunity to work through properly, and then there should be absolutely no issue whatsoever.
All right. Great. We've got a lot of questions for you today. So
No problems, no
I
problems.
hope you're good for time.
No problems.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to move this along to lithium ion. This is something we're writing about almost every day because that is mostly what most of our EVs run on. So is there lithium ion, is it the only way forward for electric vehicle batteries, or are there any other sources that we can depend on, something like a sodium ion? I came across an article some time back.
Right. So indeed, sodium ion is being talked about, but let's look at why lithium ion first, and then we can
Yeah.
think of those options so that it becomes a little easier for us to understand everything. So anytime that a battery gets fitted on a vehicle, it has to look at a multiple set of requirements. What are these requirements? So typically, you would want to have as much energy as possible within the space that a vehicle can offer. So that's called, in our terminology, we would call that energy density. Yeah, you want more denser energy, so to say.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at cycling life. So you asked me the question just now. Does battery life get deteriorated? Answer to that could be a yes or no, depending upon what conditions the batteries are operating in. But no matter what happens, we want cycling life to be higher. And then there are conditions of, we want it abundantly available, we want it to be readily manageable, so on and so forth. So there are multiple requirements. Sodium ion is one option. There has been a lot of research that's gone in the lithium ion batteries for the last 15, 20 odd years, and therefore lithium ion batteries have come to a certain stage. One of the best advantages of lithium ion is that they have a very high energy density and they have a very good cycling life. Now, sodium ion batteries are currently a promising technology. Why is it promising? Because a lithium ion uses lithium and cobalt, which are relatively rare in the earth, and these are resources not available with everybody. And therefore, people are interested in trying out what happens with sodium. And sodium is relatively easily available, it is cheaper, but as I said, it suffers from the problems today of not being able to have adequate cycle life and not being able to have comparable energy density like a lithium ion battery. So there are trials which are currently going on, and we will see as technology evolves whether that becomes a option that we can get onto vehicles and meet all our requirements. People also talk about, I mean, this is an area where there is research being done, but the other area is supercapacitors. And
Yeah.
supercapacitors also, a lot of work is being done because, they can store energy very, very quickly. and they can give away energy quite quickly, and also they do not suffer from the electrochemical reactions or degradation that might happen with a lithium ion battery. But the amount of energy that they can store and the amount of energy that they can give away, how to manage that properly, whether to use a combination, all of these options are being worked out today.
All right. So basically, a lot of research has gone into lithium ion already because, like,
Yes.
we may be talking about it a lot now, but research on EVs has been going on for decades already.
Correct. So, as I said, so sodium ion also work is going on, but it is yet to come to a point where we can start integrating them into vehicles at a regular pace. And usually with technology, what happens is you have one improvement happen, and then the second side also picks up. So
Yeah.
it's been good advances being made, but yet to come to a level where it can be commercially applied on vehicles.
Would you have any thoughts on aluminum plates? This is another thing that was sent to us. So let me confirm this with you, if it's a viable
Yes.
option.
So there is a technology, and in fact, why aluminum? It can be almost any other. You could use zinc for it. You could use manganese and all this. So these are called metal air batteries. And
Yes.
depending upon what metal you used, it could be aluminum air batteries, for example. There's a difference in the technology here. In these kind of technologies, the aluminum plates tend to become sacrificial, and they sort of get absorbed in the process of releasing energy into the electrolyte, and then you have to keep replacing the electrolyte. But also, please understand what happens is in a car, your car can accelerate, which is when it needs energy, and when it decelerates, electrical vehicles need to recover the energy. Now, at the time of recovery of the energy, the metal air battery cannot put the metal back onto the plate.
Right. Yeah.
So, for the purpose of recovery, it has to have a alternate battery, which most probably is a lithium ion battery.
Well, that beats the purpose then, I guess.
Well, it doesn't beat the purpose. See, these are models. These are different areas that are available.
Right.
Various attempts are being done. Each technology has its own position. Each technology has its own advantage. There are multiple use cases that people use. So we should evaluate all of these to find out which one suits our requirement the best.
So basically, there's no charging involved in it. It's just replacement of
Correct. It's
modules.
replacement of the aluminum plate and the modules. That's important.
I'm going to bring this back to small city cars. What would you say is the average battery life of a typical small electric vehicle? And like at the end of this life, do we talk about replacing the battery packs? Are these battery packs expensive to replace?
If you look at what's happening on the battery packs today, and this is a fear that most people have, uh, whether I will be required to replace my battery sometime during the use case or the use life of my car, the answer to that is thankfully a negative, because in most cases, these batteries are of adequate capacity to last for a lifetime of the vehicles. uh, the technology has advanced fairly well today, and therefore, as you know, on the Nexon, for example, we are offering a 8 year 160,000 kilometer warranty life. But that's just the warranty life. In fact, the life of the batteries can go significantly beyond that also. And even the first generation Nissan Leafs, for example, uh, which are about 10-year 11-year old cars, are still running without any problems. And therefore, you wouldn't really need to replace batteries as such.
All right. So there isn't really a number that a manufacturer sets on the life of a battery pack ever.
You mean in terms of a number of years, or you mean in
Years.
terms of, we say that okay, the life of a battery can depend on the number of charges that it can have.
Right.
Typically, if you every charge will give you a certain specific range, and you would see that no matter what vehicle you chose, the life of the batteries would significantly go beyond the number of kilometers that a car runs in a lifetime, and therefore you don't need to really worry about it.
Okay, so basically, the life of a battery pack is not something to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay, moving this on to safety. Um, Again, there's been a lot of talk around this parameter as well. So we'll talk about it while charging, since there had been some unfortunate cases that we read about quite recently, where there had been fires. So safety about on electric vehicles while charging. What would you say about that? How safe are they?
So let me say that electric vehicles are designed with a lot of safety criteria, safety considerations that need to be taken into account. And one of the most important things that everybody, all of us, monitor on the car is what is happening to the temperature, what is happening to the current and the voltage. Now, these are intrinsic factors, and this is what we would need to control. So there is something called as battery management software, which is sitting on top of the battery, and it is monitoring every moment, every second, what is happening inside the battery, how much is the amount of charge, what is the amount of current that is going in, what is the kind of temperatures that the batteries are seeing. And there are safety strategies which are built in, so that if any safety trigger is sort of activated, then it safely and properly sequentially shuts down the system if anything were to happen. Now, what also does happen, this is in a very steady state or a very safe kind of a situation. Often, you may have to charge in some inclement weather. For example, there are rains or something of that sort. And people are also worried about what happens in rain if I'm charging, so and so forth.
Yeah.
Uh, if the components are all rated to IP67, which as they are from an electrical safety standpoint, then it's not as if electricity will leak and it will sort of trigger some kind of a safety hazard for occupants or for the user. What will happen is, again, safety protocols will kick off. Isolation is constantly being checked, and therefore, if there is a possibility of a leakage, then the system will shut itself down safely. So all these safety protocols make sure that you do not have any risk whatsoever in terms of safety when the car is being charged.
And that also stands true for when you're driving, say during the rains, because some people do believe that is it okay to drive an EV when it's raining, when there's a thunderstorm?
I think you stopped short of asking me the actual question. If there is a thunderstorm, meaning you are asking what happens if a lightning strikes.
Yes,
Well,
if you could, please.
yeah. So what happens is, let's say there is a lightning. Uh, Whenever a lightning strikes a car, the entire lightning moves around the cage or around the external skin of the vehicle, and it safely passes on into the ground. It does not really get into the battery and play with its electronics and do something funny. At the most, there might be, depending upon what kind of strike you have, at the most, sometimes you may have some dials or something going bad, but otherwise, no such problem takes place. And it's absolutely safe to drive in monsoons or waterlogged streets as well, because the batteries are rated at IP67, which means that the batteries are absolutely sealed and you don't have problems of water seeping inside the battery.
Right. So basically, if it does hit my car, the car is quite like a Faraday cage. It's not
That's
really going to go inside it.
correct. You
Right.
are absolutely correct. You got that term very, very correct.
Okay. In case of an accident, though, we read about this Tesla, which was on fire for a very long time because it had crashed. So, what do you do in such a case if an electric vehicle crashes and there's a fire?
So typically, again, if there are crashes, there are a set of triggers that make sure that the main battery gets disconnected, and that make sure that people are able to be safely evacuated, and they don't get trapped inside. Uh, there will be a set of protocols, there will be a set of processes whereby if the car is in an accident and the car needs to be taken away, or the some level of metal cutting has to be done, then that has to be taken or undertaken only by trained people. You won't want untrained people to get into an electric vehicle and do something, because please note that there is still some energy inside the battery. But from an occupant perspective, I think the safety triggers will work and people can walk away safely from the cars.
Right. Okay. So I've got five myths for you. These are myths that are very popular. So I'm just going to state them, and you just give me what the reality behind it is.
No
So the
problems.
so the first one is electric vehicles are slow.
Well, the Nexon does a 0 to 100 in 9.9 seconds, and it is the fastest SUV under 20 lakhs in India at the moment. So I think that should answer that
Pretty much answers
very
it.
comprehensively.
Second is electric vehicles are high maintenance.
Uh, Electric vehicles have lesser components, Abhilasha, so you do not need as much maintenance. You do not need frequent oil changes or air filter, oil filter changes. So the number of lesser moving parts means that it is actually low on maintenance. Secondly, is even in consumables, for example, let's talk about what happens to brake pads. Even in case of brake pads, because you are using regenerative braking, and for somebody who is able to use that effectively, the amount of replacements of brake pads will be significantly lower. There are no clutch plates to change, nothing. So in reality, maintenance cost of EVs is significantly lower as compared to what we are used to.
All right. So third one, electric vehicles are more susceptible to catching fire because of the battery packs.
Uh, what does happen is electric vehicles tend to attract a lot of attention today, and everything does get reported. But if you look at the statistics, electric vehicles are safer. And I'm not wishing away, or I'm not dismissing the unfortunate incidents that have happened recently. But electric vehicles are definitely safer. They don't burst into flames. It is quite a dramatic description. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen that way. I think they're absolutely safe.
All right. Fourth is electric vehicles are very silent, so that could be a problem for traffic situations for pedestrians.
Uh, yes and no. You are right. Because in silent zones, the EVs can really be very, very quiet, and it might
Much better, right?
yeah, it might need some attention both from the driver as well as the pedestrians to notice whether there is an EV approaching. Uh, but also, what some people are now starting to do, and some countries are mandating, it's called as AVAS, which means acoustic vehicle signals are being instituted to give an indication of an approaching EV. Just like it's a very loud description, but on airports, for example, we see these golf carts uh,
Yep, yep,
go with a buzzer, which is
yes.
actually very loud, but similar kind of things could be done.
Right. So of course we have a solution for that. EVs lose battery life like smartphones. I think we covered it in the beginning, but if you
Uh,
could give a very short, yeah,
Yes, so EVs lose battery life. There's no doubt about it. But like smartphones is something that we may not be able to compare, because
yeah.
smartphones typically lose batteries in a couple of years depending on usage. EV batteries can go significantly longer. As I said, you don't have to worry about the EV battery life until the life of the vehicle in most cases.
Right. So that's five myths busted right there. Thank you
Sure,
very much for that.
good.
All right. So let's move this on to the progression of the electric vehicle ecosystem in India. So what do you reckon will be, the natural progression for electric vehicles in our country? Like a certain algorithm to it? Like it'll start with two-wheelers or commercial vehicles, or do you see electric cars catching on in the next 5 years, 10 years?
So it's completely dependent on the use cases, and electric two wheelers have been around for quite some time. Today, I think what happens is people tend to look at performance, and people want to have a reasonable amount of range. From our understanding of the market, people aren't really looking for super duper range. I mean, if you look at two wheelers, for example, they aren't looking for a two wheeler which will give them 300 kilometers range. But normal use cases are probably 75 to 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers. So that's about the range that people are looking at. Similarly,
Right.
in case of four wheelers, most people are happy with a range that enables them to use the car on a single charge each week, and uh, therefore, roughly about a 225, 230 kilometer range suffices the needs of people today. When it comes to acceptability, of course, there is acceptability today. We find that there are a lot of people who want to doing very well with the Nexon, which has established itself as a premium product today in the market. It sells very well, and I think this as more and more people get to use electric vehicles, it is going to be difficult for people to switch back. And I don't know, Abhilasha, if you've driven some of these electric vehicles, but once you get used to an electric vehicle, switching back to a ICE car would be very difficult.
Yep, I've experienced some electric two-wheelers, but I haven't experienced the charging bit of it, the living with an electric vehicle part of it. So I
So
think that is something.
yeah, it takes some time. It takes some kind of planning to go with it. But once you're used to it, it is when we all got smartphones,
Yeah,
we all had this difficulty of charging on an everyday basis, and we all got used to it because the
right.
benefits far outweigh that change in our lifestyle or that change in our habits. A similar thing would probably happen with electric vehicles.
Yep, I think, yes, that's a good way of saying it. This transition that happened when we used to use grayscale phones, which lasted for like 3, 4 days, but then we got to phones like these, which have to be charged every day. And this transition, we never really, thought anything of it. It just
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about vehicle lingo a little bit. So,
Okay.
say I'm in the market to buy an electric car. Uh, if it was a 125 horsepower, so people very clearly understand terms like horsepower and torque and NM and torques. But with electric vehicles, it's all in kW and kWh. So these terms are not very familiar with a lot of people currently. So what is the easiest way for anybody to judge how powerful is an electric car?
Right. So the kilowatt is obviously a SI term. As as engineers, we use as SI and MKS and CGS and so on and so forth. So, in terms of the horsepower, whatever is your kilowatt of the motor is specified in kilowatt. If you multiply that by say an approximate factor of 1.35, you will get what it means in terms of horsepower. So
All right.
so that's an easy way to do that. Uh, when you talk about kilowatt hour, uh, essentially, please understand that the electricity that we use in our houses, when we say how many units of electricity have you consumed for this month, and we say I've consumed 300 units, it
Right.
is 300 kilowatt hour. So every kilowatt hour is one unit that we
Right.
all know or understand in our regular electricity usage. So that should hopefully make it a little more clearer, unless you
Yes.
want to get into more deeper definitions.
You know what? I want to understand more, but let's not. Let's just stick to the simple ones for now. But so the charging rate, they say kilowatt hour per minute. So is that the same as using the units in our house? Is that
Yes,
different?
yes.
Is that
So
that's
when you say that my car battery, for example, the Nexon battery is a 30 kilowatt hour battery. right?
Right.
So it would be fair to assume that in order to fully charge that battery, you would need 30 units of electricity. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's never 30 exact 30 because sometimes there can be heat losses and there can be, so it is close to that number, but it's not exactly that number.
Okay, so before we end, my last question is this is retail of electric vehicles without factory installed battery packs. So, what do you think about this? Is this a good move? Do you think there can be quality concerns since the manufacturer is not standardizing the battery pack?
So we see, first of all, given that the cost of the vehicle or the cost of an electric vehicle has a significant bearing because of the battery, we should try and find out as many solutions as possible. And if this is a solution that we sell vehicles without the battery pack, and if it is made to work, I think we should all look at it. But we have to be careful about a few things. For example, it has to be a technology agnostic thing. So there are different kinds of batteries, there are different shapes of the batteries. How do you try and find a common solution that fits all or that is usable by many people? That has to be identified. And the second thing is that it should be a level playing field for all the players in the market. It should not be something that becomes a unique thing for a few players or one of the players. And therefore, if it helps everybody, and if it therefore helps the end customer in terms of being able to access the technology, use the technology, and reduce his overall exposure, I think we can still try and find solutions to such innovative approaches. Let's look at, for example, do we have the capability to integrate all these technologies to make a good solution available? The answer is a absolute yes. Do we have the technology to make all of these components? The answer to that is probably yes, but we do not have the scale yet, and the scale has to build up. Do we have raw materials to make the battery cells lithium ion? The answer is no. So we will have to depend on external sources, and that's how it is. So if you look at it from being able to make cars, being able to establish the entire working of a car, being able to set up the assemblies, being able to set up the downstream activities, and the downstream activities could also be different because you need to have service stations, you need to have people capable of handling these cars in the field. All of these things are done or in the process of being done. For example, Tata Motors has done it with the Nexon and the Tigor. MG EZS is also there with MG. Mahindra has been there for quite some time. And of course, there are a lot of two-wheeler people. But all of us will still have to depend on batteries, the raw materials for which are not available within the country.
Right. So, since, like you have mentioned this, we have dependency on these countries for lithium ion cells. So, do you think the 30% EV ambition till 2030 is an achievable one?
Uh, Wherever EV percentages have increased dramatically, they've all been done or all been possible with a significant amount of government support and government incentives. In our case, also, the government has taken the right steps with the introduction of the FAME policy and support to all the activities, particularly in manufacturing. Also, the rollout of EV policy in Delhi, Telangana, some
Right.
in
Right.
Maharashtra, Karnataka coming up. These are all steps in the right direction, and these will surely help. Whether we actually get to a certain specified number is something that we'll have to see as we go on. It's still 10 years away. It's a little uh, too far into the future. But if all of these forces were to align, there's no reason why we can't achieve it.
But you see an upward trend
Definitely,
towards
definitely.
acceptability.
Yeah, see, today we are a small market, Abhilasha. I mean, let's not have any different ideas about it. But we are growing phenomenally. More and more people who start accessing the technology start realizing the benefits. There are discussions about whether we are just outsourcing the pollution from here to there and things of that sort. But on the other side, India has a lot of clean renewable energy installations. So this is something that can definitely work for us. As I said, it's for all the forces to align in the same direction.
Okay, but moving on, okay, eventually when we have electric cars, when we have technology which is so viable that it's widely acceptable, like you go out to buy a Tata Tiago, you go out to buy a Tata Tiago EV, it's that widely accepted. In that time, do you think it should be okay for ICE and electric vehicles to exist, to coexist? They needn't be banned. Do you think so?
No, they should coexist. Why shouldn't they? I mean, customers should always have a choice. And even today, you have a choice of which vehicle you want to go and buy, and that's the reason. Once you start using an electric vehicle, the quietness, the refinement, and the sheer power that it is able to give you, silent power. I think more and more people will switch. There doesn't need to be a mandate in that sense.
Right,
I'm
because
not saying,
I think
yeah, go on.
because this recent thing we read, Britain is preparing to ban petrols and diesels altogether
By
in by
2030.
2030, right? So I found that quite sad actually, because I don't think ICEs. It's a great technology. ICEs should not be banned altogether.
True, true. We all have our feelings. We all have our views. There's no doubt about it.
All right, Mr. Kulkarni, thank you so very much. This has been so interesting.
It's been great talking to you. I loved it. And let me know how this goes. All the best to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Take care. You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye.
Take care.